Welcome to another episode of Viatorian Voices, where our conversations on the way give witness to the ministry and spirituality of walking with youth and those who go underserved, as we strive to do everything well, so that through us Jesus may be adored and loved. In this episode, we talk with Father Jhobany Orduz. Father Jhobany is a native of Colombia, where he served in the military, studied civil engineering, and worked and taught as an engineer. It was also in Colombia where he first met the Viatorians, undertook formation, and professed first vows in 2014. In 2018, he visited the U.S. to study English language. A few years later, he discerned a call to priesthood and returned to the U.S. for theological studies at Viatorian-sponsored Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. He graduated in 2024 with his master's in divinity, alongside fellow graduates and Viatorians Father John Eustace and Associate Kim Martinez. In February 2025, Father Jhobany was ordained a priest by Bishop Christopher Glancy in Bogota. Father Jhobany had spent this year serving as a transitional deacon at Maternity of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church in Bourbonnais, Illinois, living in residence at St. Patrick Church in Kankakee, and assisting with ministries throughout the region. This fall, he will begin work as a campus minister at St. Viator High School in Arlington Heights, Illinois. I'm your host, Associate Dan Masterton. After you listen, help us tell the Viatorian story by rating our podcast in your favorite app, sending this episode link to a friend, and praying for and encouraging young men considering Viatorian religious life. To begin this discussion of God's invitations in Jhobany's life, I asked him how, in the midst of a career and a robust adult life, he came to discern God's invitation to religious life. Enjoy the conversation.
I was working in the area of education, but at the same time, I was exploring since I was living in Cúcuta, I was exploring the social service, working with people in the margins. And in that exploration, part of my process was working with people in prostitution, people with HIV, AIDS, and all that stuff. And that was trying to encounter what God wanted me to do. Because it was a significant change in my life from my teen years and the early 20s until I actually decided to enter into religious life. So yeah, I was working, I was teaching, I was working in a construction company and teaching part time. And then during the process of teaching in college, I was working in a university, Uniminuto in Colombia, and the director asked me to move full time to teach. And for me, it was a surprise because I didn't expect that. I wasn't expecting to be a teacher. I loved civil engineering school and I loved what I was doing as a civil engineer, but I gave it a shot in that process and I really like it. And being in that helped me to involve, especially with the ministry of homeless people. That was the very first one, bringing food to homeless people in downtown Bogota, with some friends and with people from Fundación Eudes. And then with them, I ended up helping with people in prostitution. That was very impactful in the way that I decided to become a religious. That I believe that was the most significant ministry I have ever done, especially because when I was younger, my perspective of people in prostitution was different. People had a bad conversations about people who dedicate their lives to prostitution. And once I got involved in that ministry, having conversations with them, hearing their suffering, hearing the slavery, hearing all those kind of things, that pretty much touched the deepest part of my heart and kind of invited me to do something. And I moved in that direction. And yeah, that's pretty much how I decided to turn my life into religious life more deeply. And initially, my desire was more connected with that focus of service, but at the same time, I was asking all the time God to help me understand what did He want me to do, because it was not just about me doing what I wanted to do. It was all the time like the sense of discernment. I want to do something,
Yes.
but I have no idea what that means. I mean, I want to do something that makes a difference. and at the same time, I want to do that, but I don't want to do my wishes or to do what I want. Is feeling the call to go where God was asking me to go. So somehow that is why my religious life, and actually my life in general, has changed significantly since I was a teenager, crazy troublemaker, until today that I am an ordained minister of the church. So and working here in a parish and in the United States. So that's a significant change.
Yeah.
And I read all those steps in my life, like being open to the Holy Spirit to hear what God wants to tell me and the invitation that God has for me.
It takes a lot of fidelity in seeing something beyond yourself, but we notice in Catholic religious life a lot of people who found kind of an incomplete fulfillment in strictly professional work or in a strict, sense of earning money or prestige or accomplishment, that people who are mission driven in the way a lot of brothers, sisters, and priests are need to be part of something not just bigger than themselves, but like a mission and charism that come from beyond and above that they can step into and live out. So when you were trying to discern what this meant in your heart and for your life, how did you entertain the different possibilities of going to a diocese formation program or looking at religious communities? What brought you toward the Viatorians and where you ended up here?
Well, going to a diocese was never an intention for me because I never was in my plans to become a priest. I wanted to be a civil engineer and I wanted to make money and I wanted to spend that money in the best way that I could do it. Yeah. So I get the opportunity to go to soccer games in Mexico and in Argentina and in different places. I love soccer and I like it to travel. So I enjoy part of my life making money as a civil engineer and spending it in the way that I wanted to do it. But religious life was different. Religious life was something that was not in my initial plans. Being a religious was never in my initial plans. It was never something that I planned to do. I was engaged when I had the first initial try of what will it be if I am not a married man with a family. What could happen? Because, yes, of course, one of the first thoughts that I had when I was in that process of discernment was, well, as a married man, I can do a bunch of things. But at the same time, I was wondering, once I get my wife and my children, I have to start thinking more about them rather than thinking about living all this mission that I wanted to live. And I thankfully I had a beautiful understanding girlfriend that she told me, I don't want to get into this fight with God. Take your time, go, give it a try. If this is not for you, come back and we will keep our plans. If this is for you, just let me know and we move on. And I believe that was the biggest part of why I gave the steps that I gave. Because, of course, when you are in college, you have so many dreams that you want to fulfill in your life. And actually, I got mine after I was religious, but that's part of the other conversation. But when you are in college, you want to fulfill your dreams, and I had my dreams, but in my dreams, being a religious was not part of the plan. But after I engaged in all this social service and seeing what those priests in the local town did for people in the margins, poorest people in the city, that touched something in me that was different. So in my case, my idea was not to become a priest. My idea was to dedicate my life to serve people where they are. And I knew that if I will work with those people in prostitution, being a priest will not be the best way to do it, because for them And especially in a society like in Colombia, I will be banned by the bishops very quickly, like giving communion to people in prostitution and celebrating masses on the streets with people in prostitution that I did with the priest that used to do that. So I went to do those things, and for me as a Catholic was shocking, and at the same time was very encouraging of, oh my God, I can do something meaningful for people who really need. So when I made the decision to join, I was in the search of religious life, and at the same time I wanted to be happy and fulfill my dreams. And again, one of my dreams was to and that will sound like a silly, but I thought in the top of my career as a civil engineer at some point, once I get involved into teaching, was to become the director of the civil engineering school in the at least in the smallest civil engineering school in Colombia. And somehow in 2015, Father Tamamberen as a provincial allowed me to apply to become the head of civil engineering school in Catholic University in Colombia. That was the largest civil engineering school in the whole country. More than 2,000 students were in that school, and for me was getting the top of my career in the largest civil engineering school. That was something that I was never expecting. I was 35 years old when that happened, and that was something awesome. And at the same time, that is somehow I ended up joining the Viatorians, because the Viatorians were not only dedicated to do the ministry in religious life. For me, the education was part of what my personal dreams had in my decision. And because I didn't knew, I mean, I was not the most connected person with the church. So I had no idea about communities except for the Franciscans and the Dominicans and the Benedictines. And I have to tell you, I never saw myself wearing any habits. So I say, religious life is not for me. But then I got to know the Viatorians with the invitation of, or with the conversations with Father Frank Enciso. And those conversations were very clear and very open to me. You can be afraid of the community no matter you are not a school teacher, a high school teacher, but you could be afraid because you are involved with education, and we are educators in faith. So that encouraged me a lot to move forward to enter the Viatorians when I did it.
It's nice when you find that both and answer. And I think that's one of the things that makes Catholicism great is we don't do a lot of either or. We do a lot of both and. You can be both living your dreams that you brought into discernment and also living out a rich religious life, and they don't have to cancel each other out or fight each other out. They can happen at the same time because you found a good fit in a community that was ready to help you grow.
Yeah, and I can tell you something. So many people ask me why I made the decision to leave civil engineering to become a priest. And I say, I have never left civil engineering.
Right.
I am still working with things. I still work with my community, helping in all the constructions projects that I can be involved with. I can still do things with contracts and things that I work with the community, and I put my gifts to the service of the community because I know that this is part of who I am. It's not something that is just there and I just left it behind. No, it's part of who I am, and I enjoy doing that. And yeah, that's sometimes it's a little difficult for people to understand it, but I believe that's something that makes me different, a little weirdo, as people say here, but at the same time is something enjoyable because it's putting the reality of my life to the service of the community.
Mm-hmm. There's a place in this community for different paths of formation and studies. It isn't a one size fits all.
Yep.
Men are allowed to pursue paths that fit their gifts and talents in the various ways that you can be of service to the people of God in our communities. So what would you say in this first part of religious life as a brother? What did the time preceding your ordination to priesthood, when you were living as a religious brother, living out your vows, what does that mean to you, and what will you carry from that time early in your religious life that helped in a way prepare you for priesthood, but is really just the foundation of your religious life for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I always had an expression that many of my brothers who are priests in Colombia didn't like. That I say that being a priest in religious life is being a brother with some special or additional ornaments that are put on you for your service. And they didn't like that, but I still believe that I am a brother that happens to be ordained as a priest. I see myself in the community as a brother that came here to put my talents to the service of the people of God and to my community. And and especially when I joined the religious life, as I told you, I was never thinking about priesthood. That was not in my plans. And somebody in Colombia asked me if I was pursuing ordination, and I said, no, that's not my plan. That's not in my idea. Some of them try to encourage me or even push me harder to become a priest, and I say no, I don't have that need. I mean, for most of the families in Colombia who are Catholics, having a son who becomes a priest is the wonderful thing that happens. We had it at home, and my brother was even boring for me. So he was my brother. So I didn't see priesthood as something special or a dream that I wanted to fulfill. I was so happy in my life as a brother, always asking God to help me discern what was the next step and the needs that I wanted to fulfill. And I say something that I have ever said in the community. I would like to help and to serve where the community needs me. When I came here in 2018 to take English classes, my plan was to become bilingual and be able to teach in college, in some colleges in Colombia that pay very well for bilingual college teachers.
Okay.
So that was my initial plan. And I was here and I was fine. And I had conversations with my brothers and I expressed exactly the same. Well, I in my plans is not prison. But at some point, one of the brothers here told me, we need priests in the United States. And I say, yes, you need them, but I am Colombian. And he said, yes, but you are from the same province. I mean, we are from the same province. We are from the same religious community. And now your English is improving. Why don't you think about this? That priest is now my mentor here at maternity. It's Father Jason. And when I told him that basically my discernment for priesthood started with his invitation, he couldn't believe that because he didn't remember that conversation and what exactly he said. But for me, those words of moving from the brother's life that was basically, I wanted to teach, and at the same time, for me, I can tell you, teaching in college was awesome because I never went to apply for an interview, a job interview, saying I am Brother Jhobany Viatorian. No, I'm Jhobany Orduz, civil engineer. And when people realized that I was a brother, a consecrated man, living in community with vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience, they got like, is that even possible?
Yeah.
I mean, they had no idea
Yeah.
that we were human beings, normal people. No, they thought, they had this impression that the religious people will be all the time singing psalms in front of the holy tabernacle or whatever. And no, we live in the world, and that was what made religious life as a brother so amazing for me. But trying to listen to God's voice in my heart was the invitation of, and I say that since the beginning, if the community at some point needs my service as a priest, God will give me the desire to do that. And when that happened, I was not even expecting that, but later on the road, we had a conversation with the other provincial that was Father Hall, And yeah, I decided to move on and give the steps, and here I am 2 months after my ordination.
Yeah, so you go through this whole process of theological studies and ordination to the transitional diaconate, which involves a lot of reading, a lot of discussions, a lot of writing, a lot of ministry experience, and now here you are, like, beginning this priestly ministry. So what are your impressions of the first few months of saying masses and hearing confessions and receiving people as a priest and or as, like, as you say, as a brother with priestly, ministerial capacity? What, has anything surprised you, or are things kind of unfolding like you imagine? What's it been like?
I was surprised of many things. Well, initially I was surprised of myself because I never thought that I would be able to go to a different country to do a degree in theology in a different language. I never had that in mind. And that was challenging. That was hard. That was at the same time an opportunity for me to understand that I don't have to be perfectionist as I used to be.
Yeah.
I got some degrees in Colombia, and in the last two that I got in Colombia, in my graduation, I graduated Santo Tomas University in Roads and Infrastructure with honors because my thesis was the best one in that graduation.
Yes.
And then with the one in finances, I again, different school, different thing, I graduated with honors because my thesis was the highest grade that the school offers. And like the very cum laude thesis is not for everyone. And I got in mind somehow at some point in my life that I needed to be as closer to perfection as I could do it, you know. And why, I have no idea why, but being here and being the guy that comes from a different country and being the guy that just get the basic grades. I'm not saying that I was bad, but I'm saying is not being the highest grades or the first in the class. That was a significant change, and the actual the current provincial, Father Mark, before he became provincial, he told me something that was very important for me. He told me, Jhobany, you don't need to be perfect. You need to be good. Don't let your perfectionism to stop doing good. And those words mark something significant in that. So moving in that direction and helping me helped me to understand that I was called not to do a perfect ministry as a priest, as some people would think, like, oh, you become like a minister of God on earth. No, we are instruments that God uses for some sacraments, but especially for me, the sacrament of reconciliation became my big surprise because I never thought to serve in that ministry, knowing that people come to the priest as penitents, putting their basic weaknesses, and that gives me the opportunity to understand that I have to humble myself before God, because that is who we are. We are sinners. So before priesthood, I went to confession, and I enjoyed going to confession because that was a relief in my life. But being on the other side of the screen in the confessional, that gives you something significant, and at the same time something that pushes you to be humble, especially for the people in the pews and for the people that approach to that sacrament.
I like the advice from Father Mark, and how timely to get it at the moment that you did, when maybe it was just exactly what you needed at a a crucial moment in your formation. So what would you say now, as someone who's been in religious life for a good amount of years now and has a little bit of experience and hopefully maybe some wisdom too? What would you say to a teenager, a young adult, who is thinking maybe they are a mission-driven person, maybe they have a heart of service, and maybe there is something for them in religious life, what kind of, guidance or suggestion would you want to put in their heart or in their life of prayer?
The first thing that I want to tell them is that I also was thinking about getting married and having a family. That was my first thought. And thanks God, I got the opportunity to explore my religious life before. Because married life is a sacrament, and it's a sacrament of love, but it's a different sacrament of love. Because I say to the couples, they become helpers of God in creation, but at the same time, that creation moves and changes and is all the time in process. And religious life is a different sense of the love of God to the people, because in our life we are called to dedicate our lives not to only one person or your wife and your children. We are called to dedicate our lives to hear God's voice and be free to go and do what God is inviting us to do. And again, there is no something that I can say God told me directly in a dream or something. I wish I could do that. Like, oh,
Wouldn't that be
that would be
nice?
nice. That God comes to my mind and in dreams send me Angel Gabriel, and I can take some selfies with the Gabriel, with the angel, as I preached once in San Pedro High School, and I'm still scared that they don't believe that I am a heretic person, but yeah, it will be nice to have the visit of an angel, and it will be so interesting to do that. But no, I have felt God's call through my brothers, through the community, through the people in the pews, through the church, and all the time. And even in my times when I am really down, my prayer is always asking God, what is next, God? What do you want me to do? Even when I am down. Some of the people know that I am moving through the mourning of one of my nieces at this time, and that's not easy. And feeling that you failed to help somebody you really love, and grieving that part of life is hard. And you go down and you feel like frustrated, and at the same time is, God, here I am. What is next? What do you want me to do? What is the next step that you want me to give? And that especially is my invitation for younger people, is, if you believe that you can be fulfilled in your life, living your dreams, go for them and ask God for wisdom, that God will give you as you ask. And that's something that is no that Jhobany says there is something written in the Bible. Yeah, ask and you will receive. That's a promise of Jesus Christ. But don't ask what I was asking when I was younger. I was asking to have a wonderful company, to have a wonderful job, to have a lot of money, and to get crazy because I could get crazy with a lot of money. That was basically pretty much my ask. And I got the opportunity and the blessing to have a good work, and I spent most of my money going to soccer games and all that stuff, and then looking back I say I felt joy. I was kind of temporarily happy. And now that I profess poverty and that I have nothing, I feel even happier than that time. Why? I don't know, but basically because those moments of happiness in the regular world that we are involved with, those are very temporal. Those are not long term times of joy. And yes, I can tell you, religious life is an opportunity to feel up and down, but in my life, when I feel really down, I have my brothers that hold my back, and that's something that is good. Last night, in one of our activities with CTU, one of my brothers approached to me at the end of the meeting, and he asked me, "How are you doing? I'm so sorry for the loss in your family." And if you need something, if you need to talk, don't hesitate to call me. And feeling that sense of my brothers, that is a brother that I cannot see every weekend or I see him once in a while, but knowing that he holds my back and he's supporting me in these moments of sadness and grief, that is what makes me feel that no matter the problems, I feel the happiness of being a religious.
That's all for this episode of Viatorian Voices. We'd like to thank Jhobany for sharing his witness with us, and we pray for his continued ministry as a Viatorian and as a priest. Viatorian Voices, Conversations on the Way is a production of the Viatorian community. Viatorians are professed brothers and priests, together with women and men lay associates, who proclaim Jesus Christ and his gospel and raise communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. In the footsteps of Venerable Louis Querbes and under the patronage of Saint Viator, we strive to do everything well so that through us Jesus may be adored and loved. This includes Catholic Theological Union. CTU is a graduate school of theology and ministry in Chicago, co-sponsored by the Viatorians and several partner religious communities. Viatorians have served as professors and administrators, including Father Mark Francis's recent term as president. Many Viatorian brothers, priests, and associates have earned theological degrees from CTU, and we continue sending our members there for studies. To learn more about CTU, visit ctu.edu or follow Chicago CTU on social media. To learn more about our community, visit Viatorians.com or follow us on social media at ViatorianUSA. Young adults seeking to connect with faith-filled peers can follow at ViatorianYA on the Way on Instagram, where our young adult community is building new pathways for walking together in faith. Those seeking support and accompaniment in exploring God's invitations for them are invited to reach out to Vocation Ministry. Send us a DM on social media or email us to start a conversation. Remember, you can help us tell the Viatorian story by rating our podcast in your favorite app, sending this episode link to a friend, and praying for and encouraging young men considering Viatorian religious life. On behalf of the Viatorian community, I'm Associate Dan Masterton. Venerable Louis Querbes, inspire us. Saint Viator, pray for us. Adored and loved be Jesus.